Also, another invitation, this one free, this one costs nothing. Join the discussion on the David Pakman Show subreddit, which you can find at davidpakman.com/Reddit. About 33,000, believe it or not, and many people don't believe it, about 33,000 of our viewers and listeners are now subscribed to the subreddit. A few posts I spotted this morning that I thought were interesting. One user who goes by the moniker Fallen Knight says Dave Rubin is becoming one of the more dangerous voices on the right. This may sound like a joke, but I've noticed Dave Rubin's language get more and more extreme. I used to watch a show years ago until it turned into a libertarian echo chamber. He's very obviously a moron and a grifter. However, his use of the word evil to describe anything from left-wing pundits to media outlets to the government is becoming more and more common. This is hardly a societal barometer, but his Twitter feed and YouTube videos are filled with people foaming at the mouth with contempt for liberals. I've noticed this more on his channel than even some of the more well-known pundits like Ben Shapiro. Yeah, I think what might be going on, if you look at Rubin's YouTube channel stats, which we did on a stream not long ago, as some people mentioned it, the views on his channel are extremely low. And it almost seems like the cachet of him abandoning the left and going to the right and, you know, all this stuff and being a Trump supporter. The initial jolt from that maybe is fading. And so when that happens, sometimes people have to keep upping the ante, becoming more and more salacious in order to titillate their audience. That may be going on. I'm not really sure, but I'd be curious to hear from the audience about what you think is going on with Dave Rubin, if you're paying attention. User Dragon Fruit is delicious, I have to tell you, says argument against Trump run in 2024 and writes, if Trump runs again in 2024, would it not be a humorous argument to make that since he never lost his reelection campaign, that he's ineligible to run in 24 due to term limits? There's no real hope that this lawsuit would succeed other than forcing Trump and his campaign to admit that he did lose the prior election. Yeah, this has been brought up before, which is it's this sort of like funny idea. You have to enter the world of stupid in order to even think this way. But if Trump really did win in November of 2020, then really he can't run in 24 because that would be his third term. But I'm sure that they would argue they know how to defeat that. And they would say, you can't be elected and serve more than 2 terms. And although we believe Trump won in November of 2020, he didn't serve a second term and therefore is still eligible. Like, they would easily defeat that. But of course, you're making an astute point. A user Reflex Point on the subreddit is worried about the Democratic Party and says, do we have any charismatic leaders in the pipeline? Who do you think the future up and comers are? The type of Democrat that could win big in the post-Biden era. I remember when Obama gave his speech at the DNC in 2004. And even though I'd never heard of him, I knew right away he was going to be president one day. I just didn't think it would be so soon after. But nobody right now is giving me that rising star feeling like Obama did in 2004. I know some will probably say AOC, but honestly, I don't think she'd be ever be viable in a nationwide election. So I don't know. Anytime anybody says never about anything in American politics, I step away because, you know, many of us would have said someone like Donald Trump will never be president. Trump will never be president. And we would have all been wrong. So I don't know that I'm ready to say AOC could never be viable nationally. But if you want to think about who's charismatic, I think Jon Ossoff is an interesting character. He has the potential to get pretty, prominent depending on his path in the Senate. He's a Georgia senator, Democratic senator. I think he's quite charismatic. In some sense, I find so much, and during the 2020 Democratic primary, I found so much about Pete Buttigieg not particularly thrilling, but I do think that if he continues to crush these right-wing hosts on TV and be the kind of articulate guy that he is, maybe Pete Buttigieg would have a bright political future. He's a very good communicator, as some people are pointing out. I think at one point I might have wondered about Gavin Newsom, but I don't know. I think he's sort of beleaguered right now. Eric Garcetti, I don't know. I mean, I'm struggling to come up with really exciting figures. Let's put it that way. And I think it's a concern for Democrats. Like, who are the up and coming charismatic leaders? I'm not so sure. Join the discussion on the subreddit at davidpakman.com/Reddit.